What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Johnversations Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John Connor, saying thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this week. We got a great episode, super excited about our guest. I know I say that every week, but this week I've been really amped up. I've been super excited to get this out. Before we get into the guest, though, please call to action. Make sure you're following us on the socials. Head over to Facebook, follow us at Johnversations, Instagram at Johnversations, Twitter, a Johnversation. Also head over to johnversationspodcast.com. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you, what you like, who you'd like to see on the show. Again, if you are listening, go into the show notes, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform or if you're watching on YouTube, go into those notes, click the links, give us a follow, leave a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. Also, guys, share this with your friends. You know, if you like the show, you like what we do, let people know, right? We want to make sure we're getting out to as many people as we can, and that's all because of you. So thank you guys for joining us this week. Again, hope you're happy, hope you're healthy, hope your families are doing well, hope you're getting to hug the people that matter to you. It's a scary time still, so enjoy the love where you can get it. My guest today, so excited. And I know you're like, John, you're excited every week. I know, but I'm telling you, I've been pacing the house this week. I've been doing a deep dive, super, super exciting. My guest today, actor, musician, writer, producer. You may have seen her in Rake. You may have seen her in The Magnificent Seven with Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, just list goes on and on. You may have seen her in The Cleansing Hour, available on Shudder now. This week, I get to sit down with the incredibly talented Miss Alix Angelis. It was a great conversation, so much fun. I'm really excited for you guys to hear it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. But again, thank you for joining us and let's hit it. Alix, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to have the opportunity to sit down with you. I've been telling my wife, I've been like doing a deep dive all week, just getting ready for this because the work that I've seen you do has kind of blown me away. So I just, first and foremost, before we jump into anything, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. And, we were talking a little bit before the show, but you did get to go see Brandi Carlile last night. How was that show? Because she's amazing. And I wanted to wait to kind of ask you about it until we got rolling, but how was it?
It was fantastic. Their new album released yesterday, and it was just like a big celebration. It's really amazing. They just keep getting better.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's I was telling you, we live about 20 minutes from Nashville, so she's a very big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely cool. I'm glad that you got that opportunity and you had a good experience, and especially with COVID, like I'm sure it felt nice just to be like, I'm going to a concert,
Yeah. It was outside in an amphitheater in Stanford, and it was beautiful weather. And so I felt pretty safe. But yeah, it was weird. It's my first concert back. But everybody needed to like prove they're vaccinated. And so it was fine.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that, given the climate, you had an opportunity to enjoy yourself. And if there was a first show back, like here in Nashville, we do Live on the Green every year. But this year, because of COVID, they're holding off. So I guess they're coming back big next year. But that's the thing that me and my wife always do every year. Like she was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, and we were, watching Jimmy Eat World and Ben Harper and all the stuff. And she's just, having as good of a time as you can when you're 8 months pregnant. But, we definitely have missed that throughout the whole pandemic and everything like that. So I'm a little bit jealous that you got to go.
Yeah, you should be. It was awesome.
Well, for people who aren't familiar with you, you were an actor, you're a writer, you're a director. I mean, you produce, you've got music credit. I mean, you do a little bit of everything. And very well, I might add. There's that old expression like what is it?
Grades, master of none.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I'm blanking tonight. But everything that I've so let me start by saying this. I'm a huge horror movie nerd. And I had been seeing the preview for the Cleansing Hour and the trailer, and I was like, this movie looks awesome. And every year around Halloween, I usually get Shudder and I kind of like binge, and then I'm like, all right, I'll pay for it next Halloween. So this year, I bought it and I sat down to watch it, and I want to get more into that kind of as we go, because I want to talk about that as its own separate piece. But I was absolutely blown away by not only the film, but by your performance. And then, like I said, I just started deep diving. I hit you up on Instagram, and thankfully you were nice enough to come and do this. But before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about how you got to where you are now and those steps, because from what I understand, like you grew up on a farm in Florida, right? Like kind of like I think I heard you describe it in interviews, kind of like a little commune with your twin sister. And I'm not going to ask like any of you ever switch dates with a boy or anything. I'm sure you guys get that all the time, but like, I wanted to ask, like, what was that like growing up in that kind of setting? And I guess, how do you think it helped foster your creativity?
I had a delightful childhood. Yeah, we had this little farm. We still do. My aunt and uncle live on it and still raise cows and chickens. And and the best part was TV didn't come out there. Like the cable company just like didn't come out that far. And that doesn't seem like the best part, but it funnily enough, we had to, come up with our own imagination games, playing in the woods. I think that was invaluable for my, development. And I think that gave us, I talk about us a lot because of my twin sister. So it's not the royal we, it's just me and my sister.
We spent a lot of time.
Yeah. But yeah, it just gave us a lot of creativity, I think. I mean, that's one way of analyzing it. And that gave us the foundation for, wanting to create things. And she's a musician. I write and act, and yeah.
Well, it's funny too, because I grew up, and your sister is an amazing singer-songwriter, and your harmonies are very on point. And I say that as somebody who grew up playing music. I was, got out of high school, got a record deal, like toured, like somebody who's has put music out, and somebody who is also someone who also has a deep appreciation. And I was, like I said, this whole week I've been kind of gearing up for it, and I was playing it for my wife, and I was like, listen to these harmonies, like it's so rad. But it kind of got me thinking that, like, one of my earliest memories of playing music was I got an acoustic guitar, and then we went to visit my family in Kentucky, and it was very, very similar where, there wasn't that cable TV. They had chickens and tobacco fields and stuff like that. So like, I'm the oldest of four, and it was all of us kids. So to keep us entertained, I would play music for the younger kids and stuff like that. And I guess I wanted to ask, like, do you think had, you grown up with, cable in the house and access to all the stuff that you didn't have, do you think things may have turned out differently for you? Or do you feel like, that was kind of the spark that you needed to be able to find that creativity?
It's hard to say. I think that people can be inspired by in so many ways. Like, it could have been the opposite. If we were exposed to a bunch of movies, we could have been inspired by that and like, oh, I want to make a movie like that. Or the void. That's my theory, that the void of that kind of screen entertainment created space for our creativity. But, I think being a little bored as a child is healthy because then you can foster your imagination. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's, I have my daughter's almost 3, and she's one of those kids, like, she can't stand to be bored. And I think it's like the iPads and like, just give me something. And so it's sometimes that's a little experiment where we're like, we're just going to turn off the TV. We're going to put the iPad away and let's just see what you get into, and it kind of forces them out of that shell, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you this. So if I've done my research, so you lived on that farm until you were around and that's her running up and down the hallway. I don't know if you can hear that, but you lived on the farm in Florida till you're like 10 or 11 and then moved to California. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And again, I feel like I know all this information. It makes me feel a little weird, but again, and kind of researching you and your sister went into like theater camp, right? Like I believe you put it as like your parents wanted to get you out of your shell a little bit and stuff like that. Like, as someone who grew up like in this isolated area now, like not only are you in a metropolitan area, but you're in you're in the heart of California. What was that like going to that camp and being around those other kids? And like, what do you remember of that experience?
Well, so I live in Los Angeles now, but the place where we moved directly from Florida is a little town called Carmel.
Okay.
And it's a little bit south of San Francisco. It's also a very artistic community, but it's a sort of small town. And so it wasn't like that much of a culture shock, although it was, because California and Florida are very different. But it wasn't LA. We were thrown into the theater world, and we just like took to it like water. I mean, it was like exactly what the spark was right there. And my mom jokes that she should never have done that. It's like her biggest regret, because we caught the bug and now we're artists. Thankfully we're not really struggling as much anymore. We've been very lucky in our careers, but it was just, the lights, the paint, the sets, the singing, the community of the kids that we got to perform with. In fact, I met my husband on that first year, like when we were 11, and we did our first theater show. And he was 14 and I was 11. So those bonds are real.
Going after the older guys, I see. No, well,
we didn't date then.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, because I did know that, and I was wondering, like, is it like, were you guys like high school sweethearts, or and for people who don't know, it's Vincent Cardinale. He's a producer. He's acted in some things as well. He's a very, very talented gentleman as well. But like, and not to get like too sidetracked, but like, you guys meet when you're 11, he's 14. Like, how does that relationship progress? Is it like you don't see each other for years, or stay in contact, or?
We stayed in contact because we both did community theater around. So like we ended up being in the same shows and taking the same like classes, acting classes and stuff. And so we were just really close friends for a long time. We didn't start dating until college, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, it's it's just crazy, like how one thing can kind of put you on a path and you don't realize you're on that path until, it's 20 years later and you're like, oh, like I met you as a kid, and I get, you're the person I'm supposed to be with. Like, very, very strange, Well,
sort of.
So you get into this acting camp, and you're doing like the theater camp. And was there some, because again, you do it all. I mean, you direct, you write, you're an actor. Like, was there something that kind of caught you more than another? Like, where you're like, oh, I really want to direct, or I love, being I love being on stage and being in front of people. Was there something that kind of hooked you that then led you to kind of play around in those other things?
Yeah. It was definitely acting. It's my first love. And, if I could just act, I would. Not to say that the other things aren't things that I love, but it was the performing and inhabiting another character that really it did get me out of my shell. I mean, or I'm not sure. I think I still am in a shell, like in my daily life. But the thing about acting, and I've said this before, is that I give myself permission to be more free and take up space and be expressed in other characters. I don't know how healthy that is. I probably should talk to my therapist about that, but but that's what it is, and it gives me a lot of joy and a feeling of liberation. So it's my happy place. And then just being in that world, I mean, you don't often get to choose what you do, the kind of projects that you get to perform in as an actor. If you are very lucky, you do. But that inspired me to write my own stories. And then as I, did a bunch of projects, I started realizing that I had a lot of opinions about like how stories can be told. And I realized, well, it's a job. You can be the director and like institute these opinions and execute the way that you want to tell a story in sort of like a whole holistic way. And that was how I really wanted to. That's how I got into directing, which is very fulfilling. I want to do it more. I've done a few things, and it's just been very like a huge learning process. I find out so much about myself every time I direct something. So.
Well, yeah, and I know you have a new short coming out that I want to get to as well, because I saw the trailer for that, and it looks, being a kid who was born in '85, it looks like it's going to be something that's really fun to watch. But and that's interesting, because I've had a few actors and comedians on it, and people who kind of dabble in both, and it seems like that tends to be a common thread, or almost like a personality type, where it's in my private life, maybe I'm more reserved or I'm shy, but this gives you the avenue to like go out and take emotions and experiences and things that you may not, necessarily be as open to just talk about, amongst people, but then go out and get to kind of vent those through these characters or like you said, by kind of taking up room and allowing yourself to be that big personality when you may not do that in your private life. Is that cathartic for you at all? Like,
oh my gosh, yes. And it's not just the, being able to express big emotions, and that is part of it. But it's really, I think the most profound part for me is the immediate connection that I allow myself to have with my scene partners, which is not the case in my daily life. Like, connecting with another human being is so vulnerable. And I am so inspired by people who just like talk to people in the grocery store or like just make so many like really close friends. And it just takes a long time for me to like let down my shields in real life. But I'm able to just like immediately connect with people that I'm working with, and it's just like, we are humans, we need that. And that's an easy source for me. So I crave it.
Yeah. And it's, my wife gets frustrated with me because it's weird, because in my personal life, I have like very few people that I would be like, you are my friend. I'm very much an introvert, but when we're out somewhere, I have no problem just talking to whoever. And she's always like, I don't want to talk, like, stop making conversation. I don't want to talk to these people. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to talk to them here. I don't want to like be like, come to my house and sit on my couch. You know what I mean? So it's weird how those different, how those like, whether an introvert or an extrovert or an extrovert or an introvert, just how those character traits kind of allow for those different avenues. And I think you bring up a really good point as far as kind of being, because I feel like a lot of people would think, and I've done some plays in church, so I know what I'm talking about. But I think a lot of people think of like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be I want to be the star of the show and things like that. But you bring up a really good point as far as it's about being a good scene partner and giving something else, giving that person that you're working with something to work from. And I guess, that definitely seems like it would be something that would have to be learned. Like, how long do you think that it took you to kind of become the best that you could be at that?
Oh, it's a continuing process. I don't think I'm the best I can be even yet, but yeah, I mean, I started when I was 11, and I'm some age, and I went to NYU. Well, so I started in Carmel with this wonderful conservatory program called Performing Arts Conservatory of Carmel, and it's where I worked with my husband, and we made a lot of plays, like we created them together, and so connecting with all those people on a creative level was extremely important. And we did a lot of things that were about vulnerability. I mean, I think they say a good acting lesson is a good life lesson. So it's just, I've been so lucky to be around not only teachers and mentors, but just like fellow creatives that are so open and kind and create safe spaces. And I think that's the most important thing, to allow yourself to be vulnerable and be the conduit for expression and connection. And just being able to practice that with such wonderful people so often in my life has, I think, made me the actor that I am. If you don't feel safe, if you don't feel like comfortable in vulnerability, or like a lot of people say, being comfortable in the discomfort, not everybody can do that. Like, it's not everybody has that circumstance. Then it's going to be really hard to be that open and expressive. So I think I've been very lucky.
Yeah. And, I think that resonates a lot with like people who are, I like people who are like, I don't do public speaking. Like I'll do anything else, but don't put me in, like kind of, like you said, like finding the comfort in the discomfort. It feels like there's a certain type of person who's able to do that. And it kind of lends that personality trait kind of lends to, it seems to kind of lend success to the career type that you've taken on, what I mean? Like the creative, because, I know for myself, like just being younger, we'd write a song and, you work really hard on the lyrics and you think it's really good. And then you have to like put it out and just hope, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, with you and Chris making music, but you spend all this time and it's like a little baby bird that like you have and you nurse. And then you're like, all right, now you have to go out into the world. And then you have to hope that people just don't fucking hate that baby bird. You know what I mean? So is there a sense of fulfillment or like a sense, like a rewarding sense when you do something and people relate to your character, or they, relate to the project that you've directed, things like that?
Oh, of course. I mean, that's the best thing, because I mean, especially in the way that I write, and the things that I would like to create, are really kind of subtle. I'm not like Michael Bay, and it's like about relationships and about, people's everyday struggles. Like normal people. I love that show. And so when I know that I've hit on something that really resonates for me, and I'm like, this is like such a juicy feeling that I want to share. I can't be the only person that feels this way. And then when you get that affirmation, it's like, oh my God, I totally feel that. And that really speaks to me, and like, oh, you hit the nail on the head about, that, like how that feels. It's so gratifying. And that's like the best reward. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's I don't know. I think people who aren't, even with the podcast, like you put a podcast out and you're like, man, I hope people like want to hear me talk and like think the person that I think is interesting, you know what I mean, is as interesting as I do. So I think it's commendable, because I think it takes a certain level of like, you have to get over that. You have to get over that fear of, like you said, like you have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. I did want to ask you, because you have been in projects with some heavy hitters. We're talking Greg Kinnear. We're talking Denzel. We don't have to say his last name. Everybody knows who that is. Chris Pratt. You've done not only that. You were in Alice in Wonderland. Like you've done these incredible projects. But I wanted to kind of go back to the beginning. So your first IMDb credit is listed as Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Now, I was curious, was that like your first actual role, like your first audition, things like that, or was it? Did you do like commercials and stuff like that first? Like, talk to me a little bit about how that first credit came along.
Was that our first?
According to IMDb, but they're a lot of them are liars. So,
well, I'm trying to remember because commercials aren't on IMDb. I believe it was, yeah. So that was really fun, but it was like such a small part. We were like twin fans of Cody. I think that's what it says on IMDb, and so that was one of the perks of having a twin. People are obsessed with twins. I don't know why. But that was it was just like awesome to be on a real TV set and see how it all functioned. And I just soaked it all in and watched and how it worked. And that was I guess we auditioned for that. Must have been one of our first. Oh no, we sent in a tape. I think I was in New York at the time and Chris was here. That was a long time ago. I don't know how it happened, but
it was 2007. So I granted it was a while ago. So what I did want to ask though, to kind of transition is, you and your sister either auditioned or sent in this tape. Like when you were starting out, a lot of your roles, Rake, for example, like you guys are in Rake with Greg Kinnear, who's insanely talented. He's been in just so many. I'm not even gonna go through. But what is it like? I guess like going through that process, because I can imagine it's an intimidating process on its own. If you're like, I'm a struggling actor, I'm trying to get roles, but does it make it any easier to have somebody that you're like, oh yeah, you're trying to get roles, like you're in the exact same boat that I'm in. So I like
with my twin?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me put this lamp.
No, you're good.
Is that better? I felt like I was in a void. Okay.
No problem.
So it was really great having Chris around for some of our earlier roles. Because who doesn't want to go on an audition with a partner? It's so much less intimidating, and you can blame them if it goes wrong.
Really, but that one, Chris.
No, it was, and to have a buddy on set because as we've already discussed, I take a minute to connect with people. When I'm in a scene, it's easy, but on set, there are people that just immediately are your best friend and we're going to be friends forever. And I'm not that person. But Chris kind of is. And so she would connect with everybody and just she's best friends with the makeup artist now. And she knows her whole life story. And I'm yeah. But having that person sort of as a security blanket and friend, it was great. And of course, acting with her is really fun because we know each other so well and we can play off each other. So that was really awesome to just as an entrance into the being on set. And since she's gone off and been a wildly successful musician, and I've stayed on target in the theatrical world, it's just amazing to be able to support her as a backup singer. And then every so often she'll come and and we'll be in a commercial together, which is fantastic. I mean, it's just such a perk. I tell that to my agents. I'm like, she's my special skill. You know, it's exactly like me.
Well, that's awesome. It's yeah, like I said, I'm the oldest of four, and we're all three of us are a year apart, and then my younger sister is 7 years younger than me. But we've always had that. I don't know. It's like we're like I said, I'm not the kind of guy who grew up and like needed a bunch of friends. Like I had my siblings and then, you know, a few close friends. So, you know, I can't imagine how much fun it would be to, you know, be like, yeah, I'm going to go to work with my sister every day, or I'm going to go to work. You know what I mean? Just kind of feels like it would, especially on like rough days or something like that. It would make things a little more fun, maybe a little more easy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's why you see celebrities and directors can like work together over and over, because who doesn't want to go to work, especially in such a vulnerable, I keep using that word, but it's appropriate, profession. You want to be with people you trust and people that you have fun with. And their long days, obviously we know this because IATSE is, I can't really known right now. So you want to be with those people that are your family, literally, or your chosen family.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess just people you can like trust. And I guess, you know, like when you talk about being scene partners too, like someone that you feel safe with and know that like they want you to succeed as much as you want them to succeed. I can imagine that's definitely a big benefit as well.
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you this. So, you know, you went to NYU, Tisch School of the Arts for experimental theater. And I guess my question is, you know, when you're in school and you know, you're honing your craft and stuff like that, do you ever, like, in your head, are you like, I'm going to play Claire Winthrop with Denzel and Chris Pratt, and I'm going to be in this movie, like, because I feel like there are some people that like have that mentality and that's what allows them to get to a place like that. And then there are some people that are like, yeah, I just thought I was going to do theater, and like, I'm lucky enough to be here. So like, which camp do you think you fall into?
I think I was more on the, like, I'm going to do theater, because that was really where my heart was. But then because I was in a theater company, and that we went on tour, like right when I graduated, it was called Not Man Apart, and I was a founding member, and it was so much fun. We got to tour Europe, and like, it was a dance theater company, very physical, like, expression. And that was totally my jam. So yeah, going into film was kind of incidental. The company was based in Los Angeles, so that's like what brought me here. And then you're just in that culture. I was like, well, I guess I'll get an agent. That must piss people off because it's really hard to get an agent. But it was a little easier because I was a twin, truth be told. But, and then, you know, going on auditions was like a new type of, fear factor. And, but I got used to that because I was like, so in that world of, you know, you're in college and you're in theater school, and you do things that are scary, like as a hobby. Right. I looked at going on film auditions, which is totally out of my comfort zone, as like an exercise in being brave. And then it just went from there. And being on set was like so cool, and so many collaborators, and like it gave a whole new way of being free, because in theater it's live and you get to play off the audience, and it's wonderful to like feed off that energy. But in film, you get to like do it a different way and get ideas and like do another take. And it's like you're sort of creating the moment as it's happening. So yeah, I just love them both.
No, that's awesome. And it's cool. I don't know. I think, let me ask you this, like with that theater background, because, you know, when you're doing theater, there is definitely not like the, okay, cut. All right, let's, go back to one, everybody reset. Let's shoot it again. So was there kind of I guess, did you feel a little bit more free to kind of play and explore the characters in those film situations because of the fact that it's like, oh, well, if I flub this line, or if I ad lib this, or I, try this, if it doesn't work, I can go back, where, if I did that in the middle of a play, it would just, penny silence, like pin silence, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think ideally, you would be able to try out some things in theater too. You want it to stay fresh and alive, but it is, more consistent. It's not, you have like months of rehearsals and then possibly weeks or months of performances. So it's like a consistency that still has life to it. And that is like a wonderful way of getting really deep into a character and into the story that you don't get with film. But yeah, there is sort of more of a freedom, like you said, of making mistakes and sucking in the moment, and which can be like some of the greatest takes. So yeah, I honestly, it took me a while to get brave enough to do those kind of things. I was definitely like, I'm a very goody two shoes actor. I'm very consistent, but as I've gotten more comfortable and had more experience, I know how valuable it can be to like go outside the box and try something new. And also feel like you don't always get to do that when you're a smaller part. It's like, do your job. Right. But like, as I've been lucky to have larger roles supporting and leads, that becomes way more of a collaboration with your scene partners and the director. And like I've felt more free to like be a bigger collaborator in the moment in that way. So
that's awesome. And, that kind of brings me to my next point, because I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but the cleansing hour, this movie blew my mind. And first of all, you are amazing in it. And we did a mini episode last week, and I told everybody, like, listen, Shudder's got a 7-day free trial. Like, go sign up for the free trial. I don't care if you just watch this movie. Like, don't have to watch anything else. Just watch this. It's so good. But, and I know it came out in 2019, so I'm a little behind the ball, but October, you're our first guest of October. And typically in October, we like to have people involved in the horror genre and just kind of spooky Halloween stuff. And again, when I saw this, I was like, if she comes on this podcast, this would be like my dream guest to kick off the month. So yeah. For people who aren't familiar, and I want to get your synopsis of it. So for people who are not familiar with this film, in Alix's words, like it's hard to even describe. What would you describe this film as?
Okay, let me see if I can do it as concisely as Damien does. Damien's the director.
Damien Levesque, who did such a good job. I'm sorry. Continue. I'm being a bad scene partner.
Okay, so Cleansing Hour is about this live web series that is about exorcism, and pretty soon in the course of the movie, you find out that it's all a hoax. So people are tuning in for these exorcisms, but they're all staged. And so the current episode that we're going to do, the person who's supposed to be possessed doesn't show up, the actor or actress. And so my character, who is just like the makeup artist, has to step in. And suddenly it's all real. and I get possessed.
It is. So going into the film, that's what I was like, oh, okay, it seems pretty straightforward. until you really like sink your teeth in it. And it's so meta as far as like it ties in social media, and like as things get crazier, like more people are watching and the view count is going up. And I feel so bad because I'm blanking on the gentleman who played your fiance, what his name is.
Kyle Gallner.
Yes, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street. He's amazing in everything that he does. So I went into the movie because I was like, oh, I love this guy. Like everything I've seen him in, I love. And I came out and I was like, I am an Alix Angelis fan, like 110%. But you sit in and you become possessed. And I wanted to ask you a couple different things. First, did you do any kind of preparation going into this role? Because like you literally go from, you're just like the nicest person to like batshit like crazy evil. So like did you watch any like old exorcism movie, or like did you like look into the lore, stuff like how do you mentally prepare yourself for something like that?
Sure. Well, so this may come to as a shock to people, but I'm not a horror fan. Like I had not really watched a lot of horror. I've become more of a fan since being in the genre, but so I wasn't exposed to that many examples beforehand. And then I asked Damien when he cast me, I was like, is there anything that you would like me to sort of be inspired by? And he was like, I'd rather you not. I want you to just come at it the way that like feels right, like the way that I auditioned, I guess. And but that being said, it wasn't like I just winged it. We did a lot of work preparing physically, and that was really like played to my physical theater background. And we worked together to see what the differences were between not possessed Lane and the devil, and the physicality of like being uncomfortable in this person's skin, because the demon is like huge and like has horns and stuff, and it's like this really weird uncomfortable thing for the demon, but also like having power and non-consensual power over this body was that made the most difference. The physicality and my mindset. A lot of people ask me like if it was hard to be in such a dark place, and like if I had to shake it off at the end of the day. And interestingly enough, it wasn't a dark experience playing the demon, because he's having a good time.
Right.
So I think it would be harder, and I've had this experience, to play a character who is, in pain or being abused in some way, or is really angry. I mean, the demon gets angry and that's fun, but, it wasn't like traumatic. So yeah, I guess putting myself in the mindset of like, the demon has a point. Like he has justification for behaving this way, and getting, behind why I'm doing this was really interesting. And then going back and forth and being like Lane, who's like, I'm being possessed. I mean, that was kind of a head trip. But
yeah. And so first, that's one thing I definitely wanted to compliment you on, is that you do such an amazing job at switching back and forth from going to like, vulnerable Lane is coming through and you're like, just please help me out. And then just in that split second going back. And I think you make a really good point, because I'd never thought about it this way, but like when you think about a demon possessing somebody, it's like, you're right. They're kind of like in the skin suit. And so it's got to be uncomfortable. I did want to say this to you. And I mean this in the most sincere, most complimentary. I told my wife this week. You absolutely stole this film for me. And 90% of it, you're in a chair. Like I can't think of any other movie where I'm like, oh yeah, did you see that movie? The lead actor, one of the lead actors, they're in a chair for, an hour and 10 minutes out of an hour and 30-minute movie. But you are so compelling in it, and it does look like you are having so much fun. And it's one of those films where like just as soon as you think you have it figured out, like, oh, this is the dark secret. And it's like, nope, that's not it. And then there's, then there's another dark secret and then another. And it's like I don't know. If you haven't seen it, like pause the podcast, go watch it, come back. And I guarantee you'll absolutely, it was the most fun. In my day job, I work from home, and I was like, I don't want to work right now. I just want to keep watching this. I did want to ask you this, like, for someone, like you've done period pieces like Magnificent Seven and these big productions, like I said, you were in Alice in Wonderland and things like that. But this film seemed like it was probably very special, like special effects heavy, the makeup, stuff like that. So what was that? I mean, there's that whole scene where they're pulling the cloth, from your mouth and your choke, and it's like, oh God, it's so good. But what was that like for you to go from like, yeah, I do, these fun things, and now you're like contacts in, and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean that's a big deal. But the great thing is those elements can really heighten a performance. I mean, obviously they do for the audience, but like as an actor too, like you put on these things, but it also kind of opens me up to like, because I'm behind a mask, it's like I can be even more
right
expressive.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, did you feel devious a little bit? Like when you first saw yourself, where you're like, oh yeah, like I'm scary as hell. Like, was there any of that?
I mean, actually it was when, it was a scene with, Ryan Guzman, one of the first ones where I was like wearing the contacts and like the whole thing. And he just like shuddered after the scene. He was like, oh, and I was like, what, are you okay? And he was like, you're terrifying. And I was like, oh, I'm inside. I don't like see how I look, but apparently I'm scary looking. And that was pretty fun to see that reaction. Was that the question you asked?
Yeah. But I don't know. I just imagine it's got to be like where you said, like, you can kind of be like expressive and kind of come out. It's got to be like like I said, I've got a 2-year-old. I've had stickers all over my face and like walked in the bathroom and like forgotten and been like, whoa, like I forgot I had all this on my face.
That totally happens. And like one of the funniest things was we filmed in Romania, and the studio lot that we were on had this like sort of pack of stray dogs. And they were like, doing the thing, they're friendly, and when I came from the makeup area, we had to like walk across the studio lot, and they like freaked out. They like came and were like barking, and it was kind of scary. And I was like, oh, and I had to like let them smell me and like, me. And they were like, oh, okay, you're fine. But it was like, they don't trust what was going on. So, well,
yeah, I want to ask you this because this is your first kind of dip into this genre, and it's received very well. Like when it first comes out, it's Shudder has its like skulls or whatever rating system, but it's 5 skulls on Shudder, and all the reviews are really good. And now you're kind of that's I think one of the cool things about the horror genre in general is that it really seems to be like, it's a community almost in a way that like, I don't know a lot of people that are in like the romantic comedy community where like we go to romantic comedy expos, you know what I mean? But how is it now like being part of that lexicon and being like, because I imagine for people who love the film like I do, like it's a big deal, you know what I mean? So like, what has that been like to kind of be big in this new genre?
It's such a special feeling because you're totally right. I've been welcomed into like a whole world of supportive people who are rooting for me, and that's what it feels like. And that's not happened with any other project that I've done. So, and the fans of horror are so like committed and into it, and they just eat it up. And that's just so fun as an actor, because that's why we do it, like we're not going to change the world by making a horror movie, but we can make people excited and connect with each other and like knowing that we have a positive effect on a whole group of people. That's awesome. So,
yeah. And it's I don't know. I think there's something about people who like to be scared, who go sit in the dark and watch something for, 2 hours for this, like the sole purpose of like, I want to jump and I want to be like creeped out. And this movie does it. Like I said, if you are listening, Shudder, free trial, 5 days. You can watch this movie like 10 times in 5 days. So please do. So we do a little segment on the show called Questions from the Internet. Do you feel like playing a little game since we are talking about the cleansing hour?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a theme song, so I'm going to play the theme song.
Okay.
All right, questions from the internet. So we put out a question on our socials that was, what movie traumatized you as a child? And I thought this, with the cleansing hour being, again, so scary and so good, I thought this was a really good question for you. And we had people responding, and I wanted to see if, maybe yours match. So we had West Coast Radio on Instagram said Little Monsters. I don't know if you've ever seen that with Howie Mandel and Ben Savage. It's very good. Adam Mandarino on Instagram said Arachnophobia. We got Robin 223 with Jaws. Jessica and Dylan, Megan J 416, and Tay D Smith on Instagram said Child's Play. Those are the Chucky movies. Candyman from Miss Gingy, and Emmy K with Poltergeist. So some really good ones out there. I know you're not a genre fan, and I also know that you grew up watching a lot of Rogers and Hammerstein musicals. That's why I wanted to ask. I was like, it's either going to be something like real spooky or it's going to be some creepy music. So for you, what movie stands out as something that just scared you when you were a kid?
The first thing I thought of was The Neverending Story, which is funny because it's also like, I love that movie, but the part where they're in the swamps of sadness.
Oh yeah. Oh man.
I think of that moment like often, and it's such a good metaphor for, depression. And so, yeah, that.
I love me some Falcor. So good. I think Jack Black is in the first one, or maybe the second one. He's one of the bullies that like throws a kid into the dumpster. It might be the second one. I'm pretty sure that's him. But yeah, it's I love that movie. I haven't thought about that movie in years. I'm gonna thank God for like the internet. I'm gonna rent it tonight. But for me, did you ever see Stephen King's It, the original miniseries? You're not a yeah. Well, you didn't miss out because it terrified me as a child. But that's the thing. It's the same thing with the cleansing hour. It was scary. The thing is like 4 hours long. I finished it and I was like, I want to watch it again. Like it messed with my head, but I wanted to go back for more. So But thank you for playing and sharing and being vulnerable in that moment. I appreciate that. Because not everybody's like, I like to talk about a moment where I was traumatized as a child. That's a lot of people don't offer that up.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you this. So A Country Romance is just come out, right? You are in that with Jonathan Bennett, who he is a very big deal in our house. He's Mr. Aaron Samuels from Mean Girls. It's one of my wife's favorite movies. But that if I'm correct, that's like the next big film project from the Cleansing Hour, right? I know like you had some shorts and stuff, but is this like the first
that's
feature?
What I've got coming out. You know, I filmed that during the pandemic. Well, they were still in, but like early on. And that was like such a treat to be able to be working when it seemed like everything else was shut down. And working with Jonathan was awesome. It just like how you think he would be, he is, and more. He just made everything so fun. Yeah, right now I think it's only out in Canada and France.
Okay.
Hopefully we're gonna have it in the US soon. But yeah, I mean, it's just like now for something totally different. It's like the opposite side of the spectrum from the Cleansing Hour. But
that was kind of my question though, because you go from doing something like the Cleansing Hour and then it's just a total like, hey, tonal shift. I watched the trailer. I couldn't, and that explains why I couldn't find anywhere to stream it. But you go from doing like this like super dark, very scary to like now you're kind of flexing your comedic chops a little bit, and it's romantic and it's got those tropes, but those tropes are fun. You know what I mean? So is it for you? Is it fun to be able to kind of jump from project to project and play in those different worlds?
Oh, absolutely. I think I consider myself extremely fortunate to be, I'm sort of not typecast, or at least I'm typecast in two very different ends of the spectrum. And those kind of movies are just like delightful to shoot. You know, it's not, everything's going to work out and it's going to be a happy ending. And so you just have fun. And, it's not like a huge amount of pressure. And then there is, you joked that there's not like a romantic comedy, like, community or like conventions or anything, but there's like a solid group of people who like, messaged me on socials and said like, your movies helped me through the pandemic because they're so comforting and like positive. And I'm like, that's awesome, to be a part of that. So yeah, both ends are so fun and freeing in different ways. Like obviously the Cleansing Hour and horror movies, I don't have to be perfectly coiffed and pretty, which is great. I can be ugly and like absurd and bounce off the walls. And then there's something really nice about like standing in a pretty dress in a vineyard too. Like,
oh yeah. Yeah. We are we're a romantic comedy household. Sweet Home Alabama. If that is on, my wife is like, I don't care what I have to do today. We're watching we're going to watch, that guy make glass on the beach and then with the lightning rods. And then if, there's just How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. We're all about it in this house, but
I mean, and like so I've been with my husband a long time, as we discussed earlier. And so it's just so cool to, in those kind of movies, you get to go to work every day and pretend to be in the beginning parts of being in love. Cool. It's like, that's a fun game.
Well, it's got to be like, especially like if you have like chemistry with that person, like, again, I don't know Jonathan Bennett personally, but like, you watch him on Food Network and everything he's in, he comes across as if he's just a very like fun guy. So I can imagine, if it's again, being a good screen partner, that makes that experience all the better,
Yeah. I mean, and he totally is. And it was just, I was tickled every day. Not physically, but
Yeah,
delighted.
that's inappropriate. That's some hashtag me too. Let's hate yourself.
I'm not accusing him. I'm not, accusing.
No. He's a charming gentleman.
Yes.
Nothing bad to say. So again, I really appreciate you being here and hanging out. And I know that I've taken up a good amount of your time, and I definitely don't want to be selfish with it. But the last thing that I did want to talk to you about was the short that you have coming out, Seance-ing.
Yeah.
And I watched the trailer for it. And they've got the CD and they're like on the trampoline, and it's about boy bands. And like I said, I grew up, we were the oldest of four, but we kind of we were in probably like the middle of high school, like end of middle school into high school, when like TRL and the boy bands and all the stuff were popping off. And it's looked like something that would kind of capture a certain moment in your life. And I guess I wanted to ask, like, number one, where did the inspiration come from for it? Ugh. And number two, being somebody who I imagine, we're in the same age range, was it fun for you to kind of go back and be able to play in that time?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's basically why I did it, like, I want to go back to the late 90s because that was a good time. And when I got to, with all of my fellow creatives, we made it happen. And it was definitely, I wanted to capture a moment of my own life. It's loosely based on real events. And I think that age, like 12, 13 is such a precipice for especially girls. I think I remember the sensation of, like, for the first time getting to know myself and like really thinking about that and like, what kind of person am I? What are my values? What do I care about? What do I stand for? And it's sort of, in Seance-ing, encapsulated by kind of a silly inciting incident, but to these characters, it is not silly, and it is all the huge emotions. And I think that kind of 13-year-old girl stays inside of a woman. You can always sort of feel that that person, and that's what I wanted to explore. So it's sort of been hard in our festival circuit because it's categorized as a comedy, because we are kind of, it is a little tongue in cheek, but I really wanted it to be, have a sense of the real feelings and the real like growth that happens in that time of life. And thankfully, people have, contacted us and told us that was like very nostalgic and really captured that. So success. and that was really, really fun to explore that.
Yeah. And I think you make, again, having two sisters, it's that, and I think for boys too, but I think you're right, more so with girls in that age, it's like what did Britney Spears? I'm not a girl, not yet a woman. You know what I mean? Like you're struggling to find, like, put away childish things and create like your adult identity. And like, even if that like adult identity is based in childish things, because you're still a child, you know what I mean? But you have those emotions attached to it. I was wondering, you're working in the short, you're working with kids in this age range. So, because this is something so close to you and because it's written and directed and based on these personal experiences, like, what was that like to be able to have these kids and kind of see those experiences play through somebody else while you're watching from the outside?
Yeah, it was, I don't want to say tricky, but in some ways sort of delicate and a real challenge for me as the director, because, as adults, we have all this hindsight and we can sort of analyze ourselves or, younger people and what they're going through with like all of this life experience in between. And I didn't want to talk to them in those terms because they're in it now. And so being analyzed, who likes that? Or being like told like, this is what you're going through. It's like, that doesn't work.
Someday you'll understand. You wait till you're my age. They just
nobody wants to hear that. Right. And certainly wouldn't have been a useful or productive tool as a director trying to get a performance and a safe space for my young actresses. So I had to put myself in that mindset, go back there, which honestly wasn't hard. It's like I said, I think you keep that 13-year-old girl with you. Or at least I have. And oh my God, they were just so full of wonderful energy, so enthusiastic. They wanted to be there. It was so lovely and magical. And I can't believe that I found them. Because we shot in Carmel, in my like California hometown. And so it's like a smaller community. And I just feel so lucky that I got to meet them, let alone work with them. So, yeah.
Yeah. In the trailer, I'm excited to see it because in the trailer, like their personalities definitely come through and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I was kind of wondering as well, like, with them being, younger and, obviously us being, I guess I'm technically a millennial, but like, was there any challenge like where you're like, this is what a CD is, and you would put it in it? Like, we know we didn't listen to things on iPods. Like, did you have to explain your generation like you were, Winston Churchill?
Yeah, I felt like that sometimes, but mostly they were just like, wow, the 90s seemed like a fun time, like super colorful and sparkly, and like, yeah, it was. And it's like totally different from the aesthetics that some of them are into now. Like the lead that plays Jenna, Aiden Marchese, she is like so super into Billie Eilish, the darker version from a few years ago.
Yeah, young William Eyelash. We know who that is in this house. I'm a tough guy, make your daddy. That guy. Yeah, we know.
Yeah. So like totally different from Bubblegum Pop, which, was what the band was based off of in the movie. But like, it's exactly the same feelings, it's like substitute whatever it is that you love and you can relate. Hopefully, I hope that's what we did, in the movie.
I am very much looking forward to seeing it. And again, it was one of those things where I saw the trailer and I was just like, because I remember I had for some reason I had like a baby blue CD player with bright pink speakers. And I don't know if it was like gender assigned or anything, but that's the one that I got. And I had the Space Jam soundtrack, which is very problematic today, but we used to just put on the Space Jam soundtrack and we played basketball in the backyard. Like, so seeing the trailer and seeing these girls be so invested and this CDs in the grass, it just, I don't know. I think if you were, it feels like it's really going to resonate with people if that was your existence at that time. And I'm really, really excited to see it.
Thank you. And yeah, we wanted it to not only be visual, but like so sort of everything. I wanted it to feel like the 90s, like even like there was a little bit of a filter in post. I don't know if I'm saying that right, because I'm not like a post person, but like to make it seem like not that HD, right. And also like the sounds. That was one of the things that we had to explain. The internet connecting, like dial-up sound. Like when we were filming, we didn't have it. It was just like a silence. And I'm like, just like wait for the page to load. And she's like, what? So it would take like a really long time for like an image to come up. So you have to wait. And there's like a really annoying sound when you're connecting. And she's like, okay. And then when she saw the film with the sound put in, she's like, what the heck? That's awful.
Yep, like, every time. And then you've got mail every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, those are some of my favorite videos, like online, is where people are like playing that sound, or they like give a kid like a rotary telephone and they have no idea how to like make a phone call. And it just like, it just makes you, because I don't, in my like normal life, I don't feel like I'm an old man. But then when you think about this, like these things that, you know, when's the last time a kid, where can you even buy a Walkman anymore? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It just, it makes me feel old. It makes me feel like not that much time has passed that like these things shouldn't exist. And then it makes me kind of worried about like when my daughter is that age, like what am I not going to understand then? You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But I don't know. I think I just want to say thank you. Again, I'm really appreciative for the cleansing hour, just because that is kind of how I stumbled upon you and your work. And I don't know, you're awesome. And I just really appreciate you coming in and hanging out. I did want to ask for people who, you know, may want to see more of what you do, or maybe follow you on the socials, stuff like that. Like what's the best place to kind of keep up with your work and things that you're releasing and things like that?
Yeah. Instagram. I don't know if you can see on my name, how it's spelled. Can you see that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we'll link everything in the show notes too. So if you're listening, just go into the notes, click it. You can follow her right on Instagram.
Yeah. Because my name is spelled a little weird, but it's just at Alix Angelis on Instagram. I'm the best at that. I do Twitter and I don't do Facebook, but yeah. Keep up with me on Instagram.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you. Do you have a minute just to hang out after we wrap up? Awesome.
And thank you so much for inviting me. This was fun.
Oh, anytime you want to come back, when Seance-ing is out and people can see it, like, please, anytime you want to come back. One of my favorite things about doing this show, and I really think that you are kind of the embodiment of this, but one of my favorite things is the fact that people who listen to the show may not know your work, and hopefully I've introduced them to it and they can connect with it the way that I did. And I don't know, I feel like this is the opportunity that I have to kind of talk to people that I think are super interesting, and I think you're super interesting. So thank you so much for doing it.
Lucky me.
Well, guys, that is episode number 64. Again, big thanks to Alix Angelis for hanging out. We'll see you guys next week. Y'all stay safe.